Hello everyone, thank you for spending the time with me today's daf. I hope everything is well from wherever you are and your Pesach preparations are going well. So let's dive straight in. So Shavuot Daf 38 Omid A. Well, a known phrase to be learned from the Mishnah. The Mishnah teaches, what is the case of an oath on a deposit? The claimant said to the defendant, give me my deposit, which is in your possession, and the defendant replied, on my oath, nothing of yours is in my possession. And all the defendant said to him, nothing of yours is in my possession. He responded, I minister an oath to you, and the defendant said, Amen. In either case, this defendant is liable to bring guilt of if he lied. The Mishnah discusses a case where 5 people sued him, and he took an oath denying all of their claims. With regard to this case, the sage is taught in a Braita. If he included all the denials in one oath, he is liable only for one false oath, if he specified them. He is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim, and this is a statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says that if he said, on my oath, nothing of yours, Shavuot Daf, and 5 people sued the defendant to return each of their deposits, and he applied to them, on my oath, you have nothing in my possession, and neither do you, and neither do you, and neither do you, and neither do you. He is liable to bring guilt for each and every claim that he falsely denied. The Shavuot Mishnah understands that the Rambam rules in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, as explained by Rabbi Yochanan according to Tosfot. Other commentators understand that Rambam rules in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, as explained by Rabbi Yochanan, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. As the Rambam says, Hilchot Shavuot 7:10 and the Mishnah there, see Hilchot Nedam 4:11, Shulchan Aruch Yodei 229:1, and the Ber Hagor there. Measure my possession, nothing of yours, and nothing of yours, and he was liable for his oath concerning each and every claim. The Braita continued. Rabbi Elazar says, only if he said nothing of yours is in my possession, and nothing of yours, and nothing of yours on my oath, i.e. he said the word oath at the end, he is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim. Rabbi Shimon says he's not liable for his oath concerning each individual claim, unless he says on my oath, the each and every claimant. And Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with regard to the dispute between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. It says that Shmuel says the phrasing where one uses the conjunction and between denials is considered by Rabbi Meir to be a general denial. So let's explain that. Kalolo Rabbi Meir and Bechula. According to Shmuel, Rabbi Meir holds that the conjunction and renders the entire statement one general oath, and when the defendant omits the word and, each statement is understood as an independent oath. By contrast, Rabbi Yehuda holds that the conjunction and serves to separate each statement into an independent oath, and that its absence renders the entire statement as a general oath. And commentaries are troubled by the fact that these two opinions are so diametrically opposed, in particular by Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, as it contradicts the principle that the conjunction and, represented by the letter Vav, adds to the previous matter in the context of verses. I.e. is a continuation of the previous statement and not a separate statement. See Tosfot and Tosfot HaRosh. The Rambam explains that even according to Rabbi Yehuda, the conjunction and connects 2 phrases. We hold that it connects each statement to the initial expression of the oath. According, each statement is viewed as an independent oath. When the conjunction and is omitted, all of the statements of the defendant must be understood as a continuation of the initial oath, as otherwise they are not included in the oath at all. By contrast, Rabbi Meir holds that when one makes a general statement of an oath followed by specific ones, soon the general statement applies to each of the specific ones following it. The conjunction and serves to connect all of the specific statements to the general one, so there is only one oath. See the mitzvah and the ran. And it's considered by Rabbi to be a specific denial. And the phrasing where one refrains from using the conjunction and is considered by Rabbi Yehuda to be a general denial, and is considered by Rabbi Meir to be a specific denial. And Rabbi Yochanan says all concede in a case where the defendant says and nothing of yours, that is considered specific, and that he is liable for his oath concerning each claim, even Rabbi Meir. They disagree only with regard to a case where the defendant said nothing of yours. Lo loku ela below locha. And Meir holds that if one makes a separate reference to each individual claimant and considers a specific oath, regardless of the word, of whether he uses the word and without the conjunction, and as Rabbi Meir says, it is considered specific, and Rabbi Yehuda says it is considered general. And what is the case of a general denial according to Rabbi Meir? One is liable for only one oath. It is the case where the defendant says in the plural, on my oath, nothing of yours is in my possession. The Gemara asks, With regard to what do they disagree, that they explain the opinion of Rabbi Meir differently, the Gemara responds, Shmuel inferred his explanation from the Brisa, and Rabbi Yochanan inferred his explanation from the Mishnah. The Gemara says, Shmuel inferred his explanation from the Brisa as follows. From the fact that Rabbi Yehuda says that the phrase, and nothing of yours, is considered a specific denial, for which one is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim, one may conclude by inference that Rabbi Yehuda understood that Rabbi Meir said that it is considered general denial, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda disagreed and said to him, no, it is considered a specific denial. I'll explain that. Mikol Dim'mayin the Rabbi Meir v'chulu. The early commentators ask, granted from the fact that Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Rabbi Meir and holds that nothing of yours is a specific denial, one can infer that Rabbi Meir holds that it is considered general. But how does Shmuel derive that Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Rabbi Meir with regard to nothing of yours? Well, Rabbi Meir clearly maintains that nothing of yours is a specific denial, and otherwise there is no instance of a specific denial according to Rabbi Meir. Perhaps Rabbi Yehuda agrees with him. After all, it is not typical that for there to be a dispute with two such diametrically opposed opinions. Rashi explains that if Rabbi Yehuda held that nothing of yours is specific denial, he would not have discussed the example of when the defendant says nothing of yours. Although the commentary disagrees with Rashi, since it is more reasonable for Rabbi Yehuda to cite the instance where he disagrees, see the Ramban. Said that it is considered general denial, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda disagreed and said to him, no, it is considered a specific denial. And Rabbi Yochanan says in response to this inference that the Brisa can be explained differently. Both phrases, nothing of yours, and nothing of yours are deemed specific denials by Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Yehuda said to him, with regard to and nothing of yours, I concede to you that it is considered specific, and with regard to nothing of yours, I disagree with you and consider it a general denial. And Shmuel would respond, and if that is so, then why does Rabbi Yehuda state in the Brisa the instance in which he concedes to Rabbi Meir? Instead of conceding, let him disagree and state the instance in which they differ. They will proceed to explain the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan inferred his explanation from the Mishnah as follows. From the fact that Rabbi Meir, who is a Tana associated with the unattributed statements in the Mishnah, says, if he addressed all the claims and said, on my oath, nothing of yours is in my possession, it is deemed a general denial. One may conclude by inference that a denial phrased, and nothing of yours is deemed specific. And if it would enter your mind that Rabbi Meir also deems nothing of yours to be a general denial, then instead of teaching us that when one states in the plural, on my oath nothing of yours is in my possession, it is deemed general, let him teach us that when one states, on my oath nothing of yours is in my possession, nothing of yours and nothing of yours, it is general. And all the more so, it would be clear that when one states in the plural, on my oath nothing of yours is in my possession, is considered general. And Shmuel says that one may interpret the statement of Rabbi Meir as follows. Anyone who says that nothing of yours is considered as though he says in the plural, on my oath nothing of yours is in my possession. And one attempts to bring a proof for the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. We learned in the Mishnah that if the defendant said, on my oath nothing of yours is in my possession, nothing of yours is nothing of yours, he is not liable for his oath concerning each and every claim, and he falsely denied. Evidently, Rabbi Meir deems nothing of yours to be specific, then one rejects the proof. In another language, the Mishnah teaches nothing of yours, nothing of yours, nothing of yours. The Gemara suggests common here an additional proof from which is taught in the Mishnah. In a case where the claimant says, give me back my deposit and pledge and stolen item and lost item in your possession, and the defendant responds, on my oath I do not have in my possession your deposit or pledge or stolen item or lost item, he is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim. Evidently, by using the conjunction or, we may deem the denial specific counter to the explanation of Shmuel. The Gemara rejects the proof. In the language of the Mishnah teach, on my oath, you do not have a deposit, a pledge, a stolen item, or lost item in my possession. The Gemara suggests, come here another proof from the Mishnah. In a case where the claimant said, give me back my wheat and barley and spill it in your possession, if the defendant responds, on my oath, nothing of yours is in my possession, he is liable for only one false oath. But if he responds, on my oath, I do not have possession of your wheat or barley or spill, he is liable for each oath concerning each and every claim. The Mishnah therefore countered to the explanation of Shmuel. The Gemara rejects the proof, again, amend the language of the Mishnah and teach wheat, barley spelled without the conjunction or. The Gemara asks, but could it be that this Tana errs so much as he teaches the Mishnah? The Gemara offers an explanation, in terms of explanation. According to Shmuel, the Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, rather in accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah. It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi, instead of attributing this mission to Rabbi Meir, who is generally assumed to be the Tana associated with the unattributed statements in the Mishnah, Shmuel attributed to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the compiler of the Mishnah. The Tosfot asks, why doesn't Shmuel simply attribute to Rabbi Yehuda? The Tana and the Baita holds the conjunction and creates specific denial. To use the question, Tosfot attempt to prove the proper version of the text of the Mishnah includes statements both with and without the conjunction and. Consequently, it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi only. See the Torah Chaim, who says there's no difference if one says an olive bulk, but there is no difference if one says an olive bulk and an olive bulk. Both are considered specific formulations. The context of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's statement in Zevachim 30b is with regard to one who performed one of the sacrificial rites with the intent of consuming the offering after its designated time. This intent renders the offering pigul, and one who eats from it is liable to be punished with excision from the world to come covet. If he includes an additional improper intent to consume the offering outside of its designated place, the offering is disqualified, but it is not pigul. He teaches that regardless of whether one uses the word and to connect one's intent with regard to time and one's intent with regard to place, the intent is considered separate. The Gemara suggests, coming here, a proof from Rabbi Meir's own statement in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir says, even if the defendant says, on my oath, I do not have in my possession your grain of wheat, or grain of barley, or grain of spelt, he is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim. Clearly, the conjunction or renders the denial specific to Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir. Come to the explanation of Shmuel. The Gemara rejects the proof. In the language of the Mishnah teach, on my oath, I do not have in my possession a grain of wheat, a grain of barley, or a grain of spelt of yours. The Gemara explains what novelty is it in a case where one takes an oath in this manner that Rabbi Meir says even. Rav Aha, son of Rav Ika, says even the singular form for wheat includes much wheat. Even the singular form of wheat includes much wheat. Several interpretations have been offered to explain this phrase. According to Rashi, Rabbi Meir teaches that the singular form of wheat, chita, which generally indicates a single kernel, is also a general term that refers to the entire species. Therefore, if one claims wheat using the plural form of chitin, and the defendant took an oath to deny possession of wheat using the singular form, it is considered a denial of the entire claim. The Rambam's commentary on the Mishnah explains in a similar vein and adds that the rabbi disagrees with Rabbi Meir and holds that if one denied possession of wheat in a singular form, he is denied possession only of a single kernel. According to the Midrash, Rabbi Meir teaches that one does not interpret the defendant's use of the singular form as an emphatic denial of the claims against him, as the oath is not understood as, on my oath I have nothing of yours, not even a single grain of wheat, a single grain of barley, or a single grain of spelt, while each reference to a type of grain is a separate oath, whether he uses the singular or plural form. The Midrash offers an additional interpretation that Rabbi Meir is referring to a case where one claimed different deposits of the same grain. For example, he claimed, give me back the wheat chita that I deposited with you on a certain day, and the wheat chitin deposited with you on another day. If the defendant implies, on my oath, I do not have your wheat chita or your wheat chitin in my possession, the statement is considered two separate oaths in Meiri. And the singular form for barley includes much barley, and the singular form for spelt includes much spelt. Although the defendant refers to the same grains in the singular, is now referring to all wheat, all barley, and all spelt. The Mishnah teaches, give me back my deposit and pledge, stolen item and lost item that are in your possession, etc. If the claimant said, give me back my wheat and barley and spelt, and the defendant responds, on my oath, I do not have in my possession your wheat or barley or spelt, he is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim. Rabbi Yochanan says, if all the wheat, barley, and spelt were collectively worth at least 1 putta, then even if each type of grain was worth less than 1 putta, the total value combines to render him liable. Perutim Mekulon Mistarefes. If one sued another and said, give me back my deposit, pledge, stolen item, and lost item not in your possession, and he replied, on my oath nothing of yours is in my possession, he is liable to bring only one guilt offering. Even if each individual claim is very small, if the small value of all the claims amounts to 1 putta, they combine to render him obligated to bring a guilt offering. This ruling is according to the statement of Rabbi Yochanan, Roman Sefer Flour, Shavuot 7:11. Combines to render him liable. Rav Aha and Ravina disagree with regard to the ruling of the Mishnah. One says that when the Mishnah teaches that one is liable for his oath concerning each and every claim, it means that he is liable for the 3 specific denials of wheat, barley, and spelt, and he must bring 3 separate offerings. But he is not liable for the general oath taken at the beginning of his denial, i.e. when he said, on my oath I do not have in my possession. So what's the footnote? Ababte michayav ikhlale la michayav. Rashi explained that according to his opinion, if each individual claim is not worth one putta, the claims are not combined to a general claim, by the general language at the beginning of the oath. Accordingly, the statement of Rabbi Yochanan was only with regard to a general denial. Rabbi Megash understands that even according to the opinion of this Amora, Rabbi Yochanan's statement also applies to a case where the defendant specifically denied each type. Accordingly, this opinion differs from the opinion of the other Amora only in a case where each claim is varied at more than one putta. In such a case, the Amora holds that he is liable only for three specific oaths and not for the general oath. When he said, "On my oath I do not have in my possession," accordingly the statement of Rabbi Yochanan was said with regard to the previous case in the Mishnah, when the defendant said, "On my oath I do not have in my possession," and one says that he is liable also for the general oath taken at the beginning of his denial. So the defendant is liable to bring a total of 4 offerings. Accordingly, even if the grains were worth only one putta, collectively the defendant is not liable for any of the specific oaths. The defendant may be liable to bring an offering for the general oath, according to Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara questions the second opinion. But didn't Rabbi Chia teach in the Brisa, if 5 people claimed from one defendant wheat, barley, and spelt, and the defendant took an oath denying each claim of each claimant, then there are 15 sin offerings here. So what does that mean? Tosfot point out that the context of Rabbi Chia's statement is not the case of an oath on a deposit. Rather, he's dealing with the case of an oath of testimony, as indicated by the fact that he refers to sin offerings, the requisite offering for the false oath of testimony. In the case of an oath on a deposit, he'd be liable to bring guilt offerings that the defendant is liable to bring. And if it is so that the defendant is liable for the general oath as well, there would be a total of 20 sin offering that he is liable to bring. The Gemara responds that Tana has calculated the defendant's liability for a specific oath. He did not calculate the defendant's liability for the general oath. The Gemara now questions the first opinion, but didn't Rabbi Chia teach in a different Brisa there are 20 sin offerings here? Harei kan esim chatos. It is not clear to whom this difficulty is addressed. Rashi understands that it is addressed to the opinion that one is liable only for the specific oaths, and the Gemara is asking, granted, if one is liable for both specific and general oaths, it may be explained that one Brisa counts only one specific oath and one Brisa counts all of them. But if one is not liable for the general oath, why is he liable for these 5 additional offerings? Tosfot Harosh suggests, citing the Maham of Rothenburg, that the Brisa presents a difficulty to one who holds that the defendant is also liable for the general oath, whereas the Amor who holds that one is liable only for the specific oath can explain that the second Brisa refers to a special case where it is clear that the general oath stands on its own. And it's more explain the contradiction between the Brisa with regard to the number of offerings mandated. The Ritva explains that the Brisa presents a difficulty with regard to both opinions. The opinion that one that considers only the specific oath cannot explain why the Brisa requires 20 offerings, and the opinion that also considers general oaths cannot account for the 5 additional for the additional 5 offerings. The Gemara just established that the Tana is not calculating liabilities for general oaths. Evidently, Rabbi Chia does not calculate the general oath. The Gemara responds that Brisa does not count general oath either, rather referring to a different case entirely, where each of the 5 claimants claimed from the defendant a deposit and a pledge and a stolen item and a lost item. Rabbi raised a dilemma for Rav Nachman. In a case where 5 people were suing another, and they said to him, "Give us back our deposit, pledge, and stolen item, and lost item not in your possession." And the defendant said to one of them, "On my oath, your deposit, pledge, stolen item, and lost item are not in my possession, and neither are yours, and neither yours, and neither yours, and neither yours." What is halacha? Is he liable for only one oath for each of the 4 claimants to whom he said, "And neither are yours," since they all considered general oaths? Thank you for listening, and wish you a very happy Pesach. All the best. Bye.